it's always a boys' club, right? So being a strong woman in that role, you're always having to fight to prove yourself. You're always having to fight to be the best. You're always having to push yourself to get to that level.
Without fail, in business, it seems the best intentions too often end up on the back burner. In hospitality, serving both your guests and your team is a tall order, but it's not impossible. With a little heart and a whole lot of honesty, you can build a happy team, keep that happy team, and scale fast.
That culture is insane. And we've seen it, right? We know what it is. So me and Kim chose to take that corporate approach, but add a little bit more of a human feeling versus a number kind of thing.
Today, we're joined by husband and wife dream team, Mike and Kim, a couple who not only love the industry, but also found love on the restaurant floor. Now, with Lindsey Food Group, they're serving up more than great food. They're building a people-first culture that's inclusive, intentional, and delivering some seriously sweet success. I'm Rachel Stainton-Marcus, and this is Science of Service, the podcast where we uncover the strategies behind building successful hospitality businesses. Whether you're a seasoned operator or just starting out, you'll find insights and inspiration to help you thrive. And if you'd love to build a workplace that truly serves both guests and your team and keeps them all coming back for more, well, we just might have what your heart's been looking for. Don't worry, I promise you haven't accidentally stumbled onto an episode of Modern Love. But in this episode, there's a little bit of love, a little bit of heat, and yes, a little alcohol-induced seduction, the hallmarks of any good back-of-house, front-of-house love story. But don't worry, we'll keep it clean. And we also promise that this is a Science of Service love story, one about challenging industry norms, backing your team, and proving that putting people first isn't just good ethics, it's good business. So let's start at the beginning with how Mike and Kim met on the restaurant floor and how that connection became a marriage, a movement, and a mission-driven business they've built together.
I was the GM and Mike was the chef there. And they have really strict rules with managers. So like him being a chef or the executive and me being the GM, we could hang out, but we couldn't hang out with anyone below us, any of the other managers. I was new to the area. He was going through a divorce. And so I'm like, hey, let's hang out. Let's do this. Let's do that, you know? And then I'll let him tell it. But everyone, I think, saw it before we did kind of thing.
And she used my whole name every time she talked to me. Michael Lindsey, Michael Lindsey, Michael Lindsey. And it would just be this, hey, chef, you know, I think she wants you, or you guys got something going on. And I was like, listen, stop talking like that. You know, that's how rumors get started, these kind of things. We hung out a couple times. And then, you know, the conversation would go, would you want more kids? And, you know, would you ever get married again? And, you know, just me and her chatting and talking and having a good time. And I think she was making Baileys. So she was making homemade Baileys for the team. She invited me over, you know, to taste the Baileys. She got me drunk.
I got him drunk, right?
First of all, she got me drunk.
She force-fed you the Baileys, I'm sure.
You know how she had to tweak it 20 times, so I had to taste it 20 times? And it left me drunk. So, you know, we went downstairs, I was leaving, and, you know, a kiss happened some kind of way. My story is she gave it to me. And then, of course, her story is, you know, I did it. So with the height difference, it had to be, somebody had to be doing something, right? We didn't fall on each other and it accidentally happened. So, you know, Christmas came and she wasn't going anywhere. I kind of went back to the country to my parents. And I told her, I was like, hey, I'm coming back. If you want, I could bring some food or, you know, come chill with you, you know, whatever. Just kind of being friendly. And I don't know, maybe a couple of days before, she was like, yeah, why don't you come over? I'll make dinner. And again,
bring the Baileys.
This time, she hit me with the Prisoner. 2 bottles. Yeah, the fact that she had 2 bottles just let me know the setup was there. Made a great dinner. You know, we had fun. It was cool. And, you know, I never left.
Never left.
Never left.
Anybody else melting? Just me? You know I love a love story with a dash of restaurant drama, a sprinkle of hustle, and a generous pour of Baileys. This is the kind of hospitality rom-com I think we all would binge watch. But beyond the romance, what's really clear is how solid their partnership is. Kim and Mike have built on everything they've learned from working in the industry, starting something unique and true to themselves. So let's rewind just for a little and talk about how this dynamic duo went from corporate roles in Virginia to launching their first restaurant together.
I was a director of operations, so I was running all 13 restaurants. He was the culinary director, so he was running 6. And we had no desire to open our own restaurants. We had great jobs. We were getting everything we need out of our job as far as opportunity and growth. And we went on vacation when we wanted. Everything was great. And then COVID happened. And it really changes your perspective on what is happening. We would both sit at a meeting every week and the owner would be threatening to fire us. And we're like, we can't live like this.
I just told Kim, I was like, it's time for us to stop being the animals in the zoo where people are bringing us food and taking care of us. It's time to get out in the wild and hunt and make our own way. Kim established a lot of how the operations ran, the handbooks, all those types of things. I had opened 6 concepts for them, created the menus, built out the kitchens, came up with logos, all those types of things. So for me, it's kind of like, we could do it. If anybody better to do it, it's us. We're a couple. We're married. We have an incredible relationship. I think sometimes that's kind of hard to do. And, I was like, let's do it. Let's just take the leap. Of course, Kim was like, no.
Mind you, I was 7 months pregnant.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's important context.
It was COVID, and he wanted us to quit our jobs and open up a restaurant. I'm like, wait, hold on. You want to do what? So there was a lot of conversations, some tears, obviously. And at first I was going to stay on and he was going to do it. But I just got to the point where I was like, I got to be part of this. I can't just let him do this on his own. And so we jumped ship and opened up Lily Pearl in November of 2020. And that was the best thing we could have ever done. It's just been a blessing. And we're so fortunate. And it was a big risk. It was huge, but it's all paid off. So we're super thankful.
Amazing. And can you tell me a little bit about Lindsey Food Group? Obviously this was kind of an opportunity from COVID. You wanted to start your own thing, do it yourself. What were those early days like?
Crazy.
Scary.
Well, I think what made it somewhat okay was that we were smart in setting up the lease. So we were only paying 50% rent as long as the COVID restrictions were in. And then if we had it in our lease where if we went back to takeout only, we would only pay 25% of our rent. So we had a safety net. In case it didn't work, obviously the owner was amazing and agreed to all these crazy terms during COVID. But, that kind of eased it, but it was COVID. It was crazy. I think, God, was it a couple months in? At one point I came to Mike and I said, we got to figure this out because another week of sales like this and we're not going to make it. Like, who we have to let go, what's going to be the plan. Like, we got to come up with a plan. We knew that our break-even point was $1,200 a day. So that's what we had to make in order to keep the doors open. And so we'd have a tough conversation. And then, God, babe, like 2 weeks later, Lily just took off. And we never questioned it again. It was just impeccable timing because it was a little scary.
COVID, as crazy as it sounds, because it was a horrible time for so many people, but it was the best thing that ever happened to Kim and I. Because one, it gives us this opportunity at a prime location, and the business built slowly. So we got really, 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 really good at execution. So when we messed up a couple of things, we changed them on the fly. We did this. And by the time that business came around, we were really good at hospitality, really good at service. We had, maybe our first busy night, we had 35 covers. We were freaking out. Oh my God, we got 35 covers. I can't believe it. And then a week later, we had 70 covers. And then a week after that, we had 90 covers, And we gradually got to grow into it and then figure out what wouldn't work and what would. And it made us good. So when people came and it got busy, we had figured everything out the perfect way that we wanted to execute and run it. So it was kind of a blessing there, that slowness in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so talking a little bit about starting slow, developing that culture, developing Lindsey Food Group. Hospitality can typically have kind of a reputation for having pretty poor workplace culture. What have you guys experienced firsthand in the past places that you've worked in regards to that?
For me, it's always a boys' club, right? So being a strong woman in that role, you're always having to fight to prove yourself, right? You're always having to fight to be the best. You're always having to push yourself to get to that level. There was a time when I opened up Raleigh, my director stacked me with 7 really good GMs, right? They were all previous GMs, but I was the GM. So in a world like that, that's strong, you're always having to prove yourself and just always take authority. And I know Mike dealt with that just being a Black man in the kitchen. He was always trying to prove himself. And so, and there's always kind of that front of the house, kitchen kind of energy, right? Mm-hmm. No matter, whose fault is it? No, I need this. Well, why? And there's always kind of that. So that was something that Mike and I were very focused on because we are a team.
Yeah, I think a lot of privately owned restaurants and chef-driven restaurants, that culture is insane. And we've seen it, right? We know what it is. So me and Kim chose to take that corporate approach, but add a little bit more of a human feeling versus a number kind of thing. Mm-hmm. We call people our team members. We really mean it. When people dedicate themselves to us, we really try to go out of our way to make sure that we're understanding. People make mistakes. People are young. People are old. People don't have experience. And we allow space for them to grow in our space without kind of cutting them off, still having a high level of accountability, but putting in place ways to take care of people better. I think the biggest thing for me is, your kids see you in this business and I've always been in it. And they're like, I'm not doing what you do, man. You're never home. All you do is work. And, it's crazy. I'm not doing that. And you look at that and you're like, there's so many people that are good at what we do and love being a service and love being hospitable and love cooking. But it's just a terrible, terrible thing, right? And me and Kim decided to be different and do it our way.
Now, we probably don't need to spend a whole lot of time unpacking the issues around workplace culture and hospitality. Kim and Mike have painted probably a very familiar picture. From Kim navigating a boys' club environment and constantly having to prove herself, to Mike facing the uphill battle of being a Black man in leadership. These are real structural challenges. They're not unique to this industry, but when you add in the long hours, the pressure to perform, and a relentless pace, it's easy to see how burnout becomes the norm. Toxic workplaces aren't a bug. They're a feature of an old system that just doesn't work anymore. And then there's the issue of pay.
COVID really exposed the restaurant business for the bad, right? Like the really bad side of it. And so Mike and I were really focused on changing that. We have an opportunity to do it our way, so let's do it. And so one thing that we do is we do a 20% service charge on all of our bills, because while in a previous restaurant setting, the server or the bartender gets the reward, right? They get the tip. And yes, they work hard, but it's not everyone that contributes to that guest experience. The kitchen, the dishwasher, you have dishwashers working 2 jobs, barely making ends meet. And so Mike and I decided that we were going to do the service charge, and that goes to paying everyone a higher wage hourly. And so people don't have to work 2 jobs. They can make $15 an hour, and not have to stress. And so that is divided amongst everyone. And then it just helps with morale, because especially on a slow day, like they're still making their hourly, they're still making money, they're not fighting over tables. Teamwork's a lot better, because if you and I are making the same money, I'm holding you accountable, right? Because I'm not going to work any harder than you are. We're going to work the same. Now, they're getting a good paycheck. They can get a credit card or get an apartment without me having to sign a piece of paper saying, I promise they make this much money. They're paying taxes. We all know servers and bartenders owe a bunch of money every year, right? So now they're actually paying taxes. So there's just, for us, we felt like there were so many benefits from doing that, just to kind of even the playing field and make everybody happy that works there. And that's definitely helped. I think a lot of guests sometimes don't understand, but the ones that do, that seek to understand, once one of myself or a manager leaves the table, then they get it. But I think it's the guests that think they know and don't seek to understand are the ones that get mad and leave reviews, and it's a whole thing. So we know we're not going to please everybody, but we know we're doing it for the right reasons. We know we're doing it to take care of our team, and it really has created that's really helped with the work environment in the restaurants.
This is the first point worth noting, and it's a significant one. When we talk about creating a better work environment, Kim and Mike put their money where their values are. They made the bold call to roll out a 20% service charge across their entire business. Now, depending on your operation, that can sound like a risk, but for them, it was non-negotiable. This wasn't just about fair pay, it was about stability, dignity, and rewriting the rules of engagement in an industry where too many of us live shift to shift. It's not the easy route, but it's the one that aligned with who they are and the kind of culture they're building from the ground up.
Honestly, going to bigger cities like DC, Miami, and we see people using these things in this type of option. It doesn't always work in the favor of the restaurant. If it's slow, you got people on, you're paying them. I think it is easy to say, I'm paid a server $2.13 an hour. Good luck, whatever it takes, and continue to ride that wave. For me and Kim, we just talked about it. It's like, okay, we're going to do this. How does it look? How does it work? And one of the biggest things we really decided is that old heads won't like it, right? Especially at a place like Lily Pearl. Like, man, when we were kicking, somebody could walk out there with $400 or $500 cash in a day in Richmond, Virginia. It's crazy, right? And then you see their level of care for the rest of the week disappears. They're calling out that weekend. They made their money. And me and Kim were like, it's okay if the old heads don't want to stay, right? Because that culture is part of the old culture. We don't want that culture anymore. We don't want to be in a place where we want to change, but we're still accepting all the old stuff. You know what I mean? So we decided to just do it. And it was like, okay, we're going to lose all these older school people, but what we want is the influx of the new and a new thought process and a new approach to service and a new approach to teamwork and a new approach to relationships with kitchens and in front of house staff. And then for us to set a baseline in our kitchen to pay people better, right? To pay above average, to be able to get that cook in a place like Richmond, Virginia to $18 or, $19 an hour where I felt like it was impossible. I don't think in any of our full service restaurants, no one makes less than 15. And in Richmond, that's that median, right? That works here. So we're able to do that. We're able to put those things in place and having a conversation with a person, that comes in, oh, you guys are doing this and that. And you know what it makes us do? It makes us push and it makes us be great every day. Right. Mm-hmm. So me and Kim took that challenge. We're like, we can do it. We push it anyway. We want everything to be great anyway. We want our managers to be involved. We want our chefs to be involved. So we've been able to put this in place. And I definitely feel like we operate a lot better. You got people that come in like, oh, I don't want to pay this, or why am I paying this? And I was like, I get it. But, your server would make $2.13 an hour. Instead, they make $16 an hour. And this money goes to paying every person that's here that wage. A restaurant cannot afford to pay that wage without implementing that percentage because restaurants don't make money. You know what I mean? That margin is small. Yeah. So, once you explain it to most people and they don't think that it's a money grab, it's cool. But you still get those people who are just like, yeah, I just spent $200, but I didn't plan on leaving $40. You know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't going to happen. And that's understandable. Tipping is this thing that is created for whatever reason it's created. We just use the culture of what's created and use that towards the business, be it wrong or right. That's what America is. I don't think it'll ever go away. I don't think it'll ever change. Me and Kim are definitely not going to be able to change that. But this is definitely a better approach for us to feel like we can take care of our people and spread that money around a lot more evenly.
With a knowledgeable and pragmatic approach to leases and concept development, plus some very evident hospitality chops, Mike and Kim's first 4 restaurants in Richmond each picked up Best New Restaurant of the Year awards. Not bad for a team that opened their very first location in the middle of a pandemic. Fast forward, and they're now operating 10 locations. 10. And the business hasn't even celebrated its 5th birthday yet. So when they talk about the impact of their service charge policy, it's not just theory, it's backed by real results. And fair wages are just the beginning. The culture they've built goes well beyond the paycheck.
Most of our management team is homegrown. You know, our chefs, our head chef, like our executive chef at Lily Pearl, which is our flagship iconic restaurant in Richmond, Virginia, started with, I hired him his first job, 17 years old, as a dishwasher at Red Salt, right? You just think about that, right? Like, he's like my son, you know? Yeah. He's like my kid. He's family. So, you know, we have this throughout our company, and I think you touched on it, creating opportunities. People stay with us. We don't fight for staffing. We take care of people, but they know, you know what? Almost 80% of the managers and chefs in this company started as an hourly position. And then they want to stay and be managers with us because they love what we do. They love the culture. They love the energy. They understand. So building this brand and building these opportunities has now become like, I don't know, not like it's a nonprofit, but it's like our mission now, right? It's like our thing. We call it Lindsey University in the kitchen. It's like we're teaching and raising these people and giving these opportunities that they would never have to be able to get to where they can change their lives, you know, in a monetary standpoint and get out of whatever their crazy living situations are, be able to buy cars, be able to take care of their families. And it's awesome. We love it. And that's the pride. That's the work. We don't care about, you know, restaurant of the year or entrepreneur of the year. None of that stuff means anything to us. The real fabric is our people and what we're able to provide in these opportunities.
One thing that really stood out to me, Mike and Kim mentioned that some of their former colleagues, experienced managers and chefs, actually took pay cuts just to come work with them. That says a lot. It's a real testament to the kind of culture they've created, one that puts people first, not just in principle, but in practice. And it's not just about financial security either, though of course that definitely matters. It's about offering opportunity, creating stability, and building something that people genuinely want to be a part of. Obviously, culture like that doesn't just happen. It might come naturally to a team like Mike and Kim, but even then it takes effort, it takes consistency, and it takes training.
I think the biggest piece starts with orientation. We sit down, we do orientation with every person hired with the handbook. It's your roadmap. We go through everything. We emphasize all the important pieces of behavior, the way things work, how you get paid, all the things that could be issues. We emphasize that in that conversation. Do you have any questions? Do you understand? Okay, when you're done, we're going to have you sign this. This is your thing. That's what it starts with. And then, you know, Kim can definitely speak to the training part, but we make sure that in the kitchen, for me, it's this is where the person's going to be. This is where they start. These are the days. This is how we evaluate that person at the end, right? And we have tools in place to do those things. And we make sure we stick to it. Just 2 days ago, Kim's looking at payroll. She's going through, and we have somebody in charge over the restaurants to make sure these things happen. But she's like, it's weird because we train every server for 5 shifts and they only have 2 training shifts. What's going on? How is this person done with training? They only had 2 training shifts. All right. Before I dig in someone's ass, let me check the schedule, right? Maybe a person didn't clock in right. Manager still should have caught it, but let me check. Oh, wow. They were only scheduled for 3 days. They weren't scheduled for 5. And now Kim can go and have the conversation with the boss of the managers and be like, hey, this is something I talked to you about. You said you had it. You were on it. What happened here? Because when we miss these steps, we miss these beats. When people have come to us, when me and Kim were in every restaurant that we opened, they know our standard. They know our hospitality. They know our food. They know our energy. If any of that disappears, it's because we've allowed it to weaken through not following up with the training. And it's huge. It works for us. We have a great program, and it's not super corporate because, again, we want to feel fresh, friendly, approachable, but the tools are still in place because they have to be, right? And we stick to that.
Yeah, it's something I've always been super passionate about, and always something that I've always has been on my list of responsibilities, no matter where I worked. So I just have a different feeling for it, but it really starts with obviously the hiring process, right? Making sure you're hiring the right people, not just throwing bodies in because you need to fill a spot, but then, the follow-up on the training, the 5 days of training, the testing, the final. Like he says, we have all the tools in place. The managers just have to follow it. But I will say that, I feel like that is, for being a private company, I feel like that is one of our ways for success, because a lot of mom and pops don't do that. They don't take the time. They don't spend the money on that, right? They throw them in, give them the menu, and tell them to go. So I do feel like that contributes to our growth and keeping people.
So many operators are struggling with staffing, especially in the back of house. The labor crisis didn't start with the pandemic, but COVID certainly poured fuel on the fire. And yet, Kim and Mike are not scrambling for staff. Of course, creating handbooks and training programs and then making sure they're effective takes time and resources. And both of those are also in short supply for many, many operators. But by making it their priority from day one, Lindsey Food Group has proved they can build a team and build loyalty. And that makes it a serious solution to the labor crisis.
All our restaurants open 7 days a week, lunch and dinner, and it's always been that way. We don't close on Mondays. We do when we open in the beginning to lighten the load. Personally on myself, so I'm not working too much, but we've been able to do that and stay consistent with doing that because we're staffed.
Yeah, I think so many times throughout our career in corporate and private, you always heard people or, putting in their notice, oh, why are you leaving? Oh, I'm leaving for a real job. And Mike and I would just cringe because we're like, nothing is realer than what we do every day in this restaurant. Like, this is a real job. What do you mean? And so that was probably really one of the driving forces behind us just wanting to change things, because we love what we do and it's real. And we want people to feel the same way we feel about it, so.
Do you have any advice for other restaurant owners, especially when it comes to staffing?
Man, take care of your people. The culture that we live in is a culture that is about everyone else, right? And I think that's amplified even more now. But be true to yourself. And if yourself isn't good and you know that, put a buffer in between you and your people. And I've had to do that too, right? I've had to have a chef in between me that had empathy and understanding, and I could filter my craziness to him, and then he could spit it out the right way, right?
Yeah.
And as I was learning to change, right? But I knew that. I knew one person videoing me, losing my mind on them, no matter what the reason is. Yeah, you burnt 30 pounds of bacon, so you deserve to get cussed out. No one really deserves to get cussed out. You know what I mean? But if you want to grow, you want to build, and you want to be able to have some personal time, give that love back into your people.
Yeah, for me, I always tell my team, like, as owners or managers, like, our job is to create a safe work environment for everybody that works there. Like, yes, it's not rainbow and sunshines every day. We're going to have some tough days, but I'm here to make sure you can come, have a good time, and make some money. And so, the biggest thing for me is positivity. I'm always really hyper-focused on is that positivity. Don't come in with a bad attitude. Leave. And they always says, leave it at the door. But we're human, right? Sometimes we need to talk it out. And that's why I tell them, like, if you're having a bad day, like, come talk to me. Come tell me what's going on. I don't have to be all up in your business. You don't have to tell me every detail. But come in and just say, Kim, I'm struggling today. I'm here, but I'm having a bad day, right? So positivity and communication are huge for me in the environments, because if you don't know, I can't help you. Let me know, and I can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys have any other advice for operators you'd like to share?
Hey, you run your business, make sure you have experience at every level of that business, right? Me and Kim are fortunate to be a couple. So it's easier for us, right? We love it, but we're really good at it. She has her part. I got my part. If you're not good, find someone that's good. Hire someone who's good. Hire someone who can be a buffer if that's what you need. Hire someone who's great at financials. Whatever it is that you want to be. So just have great people around you. Build what you need. If that takes time and money, then you wait until you can have that support.
And I think for also like use your resources. Like when we started Lily Pearl, like we had no idea what kind of resources and help is really out there for people. And now that we've grown and we have all these connections, like you realize how much is really out there that can support you and give you the resources you need. And so, take some time and digging and figuring it out or asking the questions, whether it's state or local. There's so much out there that people are just willing to give you and help you with.
And if you can't figure it out, just hit up LFG Consulting, Lindsey Food Group Consulting. We're taking on candidates,
Well, you guys,
we want to help people do it right.
That's our retirement plan. We're not retiring yet.
I think us doing consulting and getting into that part is another give back, right? But doing it right, making it affordable, because I think a lot of consultants really take advantage of people who don't know, give them stuff that they don't need. So that's definitely me and Kim's next step. So,
having already built a great business and the kind of culture dreams are made of, I think LFG Consulting sounds like a great idea. Oh, and Mike casually mentioned something about giving back. Well, it just so happens the universe kind of paid it forward. Before we recorded this interview, Mike and Kim hopped off the restaurant floor to chat with us at a local spot over lunch. Nothing fancy, just a quiet table and a podcast prep call, like any Tuesday. But as they were deep in conversation, talking about growth, leadership, and how to treat people right, a fellow diner and complete stranger just happened to be listening in.
Oh my gosh. So we were talking to you guys. We're sitting in the restaurant talking, and there was this lady in front of us, and like our server came, like dropped the bill, and then she came and grabbed it and like took it away. But we were talking to you, so I didn't want to be like, what's going on? So I was like, I'll figure it out later. And then we were still kind of talking, but the lady was leaving, and she walked over and she said, hey, I know you guys are talking. I don't want to interrupt, but I'm a therapist and I've overheard you guys' entire conversation. And I'm just so grateful for the things that you guys are doing for your company. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. I wanted to talk to her so much more, but I couldn't because we were talking. And so I was like, But I just told her thank you like twice. And, she bought our lunch for us. And I just thought, wow, like, we really don't realize who's around you that's listening. We were just doing our thing and talking, and all of a sudden someone had picked up and was impacted by what we were saying, and so that was cool. That was something that never happened to us before. That's a first.
Yeah, a little confirmation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Huge thanks to Mike and Kim for joining us and for showing us what hospitality looks like when it doesn't stop at the dining room door. Having their lunch bill picked up by a kind-hearted, grateful stranger, well, that just goes to show in the most genuinely hospitable way that a culture-forward approach really is worth it. Because Mike and Kim aren't just delivering great food and standout service. They're extending that same care to their team, their partners, and their community. And it's working. People are drawn to the culture, they stay, and they help fuel the kind of growth that truly lasts. You'll find more about our guests and Lindsey Food Group in the show notes, and in case you're ready to build your own winning approach, we've got some extra resources just for you. I'm Rachel Stainton Marcus, and if you enjoyed this episode of Science of Service, please rate, review, and subscribe. And maybe pay it forward as well to a fellow operator or that couple sat next to you at dinner. Totally your call. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.